All right. Good afternoon, this House Judiciary Committee. It's the 8th of April, 2024. We've got a number of bills that we're looking at. We also have the people speeding up Rowell Boulevard, apparently. So we are going to have a proposed amendment on 123 that we're going to talk about here in a moment too, but let's go to these. Senate Bill 652 is a bill from Senator McCray going to the Department of Juvenile Services. The legislation is basically a data collection bill that requires the Department of Juvenile Services to report information regarding shootings of and by juveniles under the supervision of the department to the new commission that we set up for juvenile justice reform and emerging and best practices. Having this information in one place makes some sense. This is something that we did not focus on exclusively within the juvenile justice conversation. No one was opposed at the hearing. No one was opposed before. But there's a motion for a favorable and a second. There are further questions or comments about Senate Bill 652. Sorry? I don't believe there is a fiscal note. I think that the DJS in the fiscal note says they can do the bill with what they have in existing resources. There's a motion and a second on the favorable. The vice chair. Yes. Munoz, not here. Crutchfield. Cardin. Yes. Sample Hughes, not here. Embry. Yes. Pasteur. Yes. Tolles. Yes. Schmidt. Yes. Simmons. Yes. Boucher. Yes. Phillips. Yes. Roberson. Tomlinson. Yes. Erican. Yes. Taylor. Yes. Simpson. Yes. Grammer. Yes. Moon. Yes. Valentine. Yes. Conaway. Yes. Kaufman. Yes. Williams.
Yes.
Motion's adopted. We're going to go now to, the chair's very most favorite bill ever. Cannot even begin to tell you how much the chair simply adores this bill. More than life itself. It's Senate Bill 379, a task force to sit around and talk with each other for hours and hours and do nothing over the last 4 years to actually address the issues that it's a task force for the study on crime classification. Renaming membership duties and moving deck chairs. Yes, Delegate Cardin.
Can we just say that I fought like a tiger to make sure this bill got passed?
Okay, we can say that.
Delegate Tolles.
Can I just make that, Mr. Chair, thank you. You put me on that task force, and I would just say that, can I say this publicly? He's a great guy, but it was a Central West classification task force. He just kind of, made it to his thing. And I want to thank the Attorney General's office who had to staff it and he was here. But I want to thank him. He sat through those hours and hours of what you said when you started about the task force.
Now, Delegate Embry, to remind me why this is allegedly a good idea.
Well, no, but at the hearing, the sponsor agreed that to add the Maryland Victims Crime Resource Center. And I apologize. I would have drafted something if I knew we were voting, but it's possible to do
Oh
that.
boy.
I think there was one other entity.
Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault. It does put it in a different posture than the other side. 379. Do you want to add them in?
The MCVRC, not MCAS.
It's MCVRC.
Yeah.
So we're taking an oral amendment. This will be fun to add the Maryland Crime Victims Resource Council. They'll just have to concur. They don't concur in the next 8 hours. What could possibly go wrong? But I've done my part, and he did say that in the hearing. So there's an amendment to add them to the task force.
Move the amendment.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your hands. That's everybody. Anybody opposed? Didn't see anybody opposed. Now we're on the bill now as amended. There's a motion for a favorable. Any further discussion? Seems like we're going to need to move pretty quickly now. Delegate Valentine.
I just have the Senate bill number, sir.
379. 379. Going once, going twice. The Vice Chair?
Yes.
Yes. Crutchfield? Yes. Cardin?
Yeah.
Yes. Embry? Yes. Pasteur? Pasteur? Yes. Tolles? Yes. Schmidt? Yes. Simmons? Yes. Boucher? Yes. Phillips? Yes. Roberson? Yes. Tomlinson? Yes. Erican? Yes. Taylor? Yes. Simpson? Yes. Grammer? Yes. Moon? Yes. Valentine? Yes. Conaway? Yes. Kaufman?
Yes.
Yes. Williams?
Yes.
Yes. I highly recommend that the task force look at different colors of paint to dry. All right, Senate Bill 873. Just saying. All right, so we talked about this in the morning for a hot second, and since we didn't feel like we had a lot of time, so this is the Maryland Safe Haven Program, and the vice chair has something to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for holding this bill till we got back to give some time to think about it. And I have thought about it, and I have had all my questions answered, and I am fine with the bill. I will be voting favorable. Well, it is a reasonable question. So I was concerned about the 60-day because that's essentially a 2-month-old baby. And I don't want that date, and this is actually, it's a good question because I want to put this on the record. I don't want those days to be extended out too far because it almost becomes, I don't want it to be a situation where I don't want my baby, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm concerned about that. But in this case, I am fine with it because I do know that the science has shown that, people do suffer from postpartum depression, and it may not show up in 10 days. It may take 2 months before it shows up. It actually could take a little bit longer. But the point is that I now understand the 60 days and I'm okay with it.
Anyone else have any questions? We did slow this down just a little bit. Doug Carden.
Thank you. I just want to, I think I'm going to support the bill. I just want to make sure I understand that you are making sure that people are held harmless for giving up their children. Is there any concern that they're going to give them up in a place that is not safe for the child? In other words,
Well, funny
way
you
it
should
was-
mention that.
the way that it was structured, I think that you covered everything, that it has to be in a certain place at a certain time.
Page
what if somebody knows-
page 2, line 26 and 27, a designated facility may receive a newborn in a newborn safety device, provided that the device is climate controlled, physically affixed to an exterior wall, or located inside the designated facility, located in an area that is conspicuous and visible to the employees of the designated facility, clearly marked with appropriate signage, and equipped with an alert system that automatically connects to 911, a video surveillance
Okay.
system that allows employees of the facility to monitor the interior of that place, to monitor the newborn safety device 24 hours a day, and an automated lock that secures the newborn inside the device after deposit.
So if God forbid somebody's dropped off at 5:00 on a Friday, 5:01 on a Friday, somebody's going to find out that the child is there
It's gonna
before
call 911.
8:00 on a Monday morning.
It's gonna call 911
Okay.
and say there's a baby in,
Got it. Thank you.
yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna call. Delegate Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What if the baby is not, no, what if the baby is 90 days old and you put him in the box? How would you stop me?
You could be held liable for anything that happens to the child. You could criminally be held liable for child abandonment.
Thank you. That's what I need to know.
Any other questions? Seeing none, the vice chair? Yes, Crutchfield? Yes, Carden? Yes, Embry? No. Pasteur? Yes, Tolles? Yes, Schmidt? Yes, Simmons? Yes, Boucher? Yes, Phillips? Yes, Roberson? Yes, Tomlinson? Yes, Erican? Yes, Taylor? Yes, Simpson? Yes, Grammer? Yes, Moon? Yes, Valentine? Yes, Conaway? Yes, Kaufman?
Yes.
Yes, Williams? Okay. Yeah. Motion's adopted. All right. We now are on House Bill 338. When we last left our show, this is a facial recognition technology. And I believe that Delegate Moon, you want a motion, you want a motion to concur in the Senate amendments. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. So what this would do is it would remove the preemption language because the town of Point of Rocks really needs to file some legislation on facial recognition software. I'm sorry, because we want to move on with this issue. Is that correct? Okay, just making sure. The chair supports the motion to concur, but just thought he'd throw that out there for his friends in the audience. All right. Are there other questions for the committee on the motion is there a motion to concur? Motion to concur in a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion to concur? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion concur, raise your hands. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Anybody opposed? All right, we are moving to concur, so that is done. Now, on Senate Bill 123, the chair is going to offer an amendment that is right now at the amendment office apparently, but I need to go through it conceptually with the committee so that we are aware of what it would do. The second act, we've already voted on this. 1, 2, 3. What the amendment would do is it would strike, right now as the bill is drafted, it says that anyone who is in jail for 20 years, who was not convicted and receiving a sentence of life without the possibility of parole, they would have the opportunity after 20 years of incarceration to file for a modification. What the amendment would say is that the only people who would be eligible going forward are people who had been convicted of felony murder. The act of felony murder to be charged with the murder if the commission of the felony results in I'll go through the definition here in a second of felony murder. So it would only count felony murder, but it would apply to people who received sentences of life with the possibility of parole and life without the possibility of parole. The amendment also, again, makes it clear that it would only apply to people 28 and under, so that it overlaps with the juvenile lifers bill that we passed a couple years ago. If they were able to apply under the juvenile under 8110 of the criminal procedure article, which is the juvenile lifers bill, they would have to choose whether they wanted to go through the policy that way or through the policy we're creating in this bill. Again, it allows for a person who is convicted for felony murder to apply for this with or whether they have life without parole or not. It also strikes the requirement that the Office of the Public Defender represent indigent petitioners under the bill, and it adds 4 members to the task force in the bill, 2 members of the public chosen by President of the Senate, 2 members of the public chosen by the Speaker of the House. So yes, this narrows the scope of what was being offered here initially under the amendments that we passed. But there have been quite a few people across the chamber who have expressed concern regarding the legislation. And so I've spoken with the sponsor of the bill in the House. And I've spoken to the speaker and I've spoken to a couple other members of the committee and leadership of the committee. And I want to put this forward for discussion now as it would be a floor amendment that would be offered on 3rd reading to the bill. So I'll take your questions. So you're moving the amendment. Is there a second? Thank you. Delegate Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness, especially in terms of including individuals who've been incarcerated with life without the possibility of parole. Do we know what our friends across the street feel about this? I guess just because time is of the essence.
I will just be candid. I haven't spoken to anybody on the Judicial Proceedings Committee about it at this point. My sense is that the Senate will take what we send over, but at this point, if the issue is to get something out of the House, I believe this is something that can get something that can get out of the House.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Pasteur.
So I'm not an attorney, so tell me, please, Mr. Chair, what, I like the felony murder with and without, parole. But I don't know what then is really missing. Does that make sense? Or what's taken out in the guts of what was there?
Truthfully, it takes everything else out.
I don't know what the.
It only leaves the people who, well, just to be clear, felony murder can be murder one, can be murder two. So it leaves in, it's only murder one, I'm sorry. It leaves in only the first degree murders that are considered felony murders.
Okay.
And a felony murder, as it says in the annotated code, it's, I'm sorry, it's statutory. Yeah, it's in C, right?
Statutory reference. in the
Right,
key-
I got it.
in them.
I forgot the statutory reference. No, that's fine. It's in C.
That means they were not.
A murder is in the first degree if it is, and the relevant portion is 2201A4. If it is committed in the perpetration or of an attempt to perpetrate arson in the first degree, the burning of a barn, stable, tobacco house, warehouse, or other outbuildings that are not a parcel to a dwelling or contain cattle, goods, wares, merchandise, horses, grain, hay, or tobacco. Burglary in the first, second, or third degree, carjacking or armed carjacking, escape in the first degree from a correctional institution, kidnapping under 3502 or 3503A2, mayhem, rape, robbery, sexual offense in the first or second degree, sodomy, that is a crime existed before October 1st, 2020, or a violation of 4503 of the criminal law article concerning destructive devices. In many cases, what happens is these are the people who are the co-conspirators of the crime who may not pull the trigger, but they are part of the, not quite a conspiracy in some cases. And so the idea here is that the conditions under the bill to get a modification would be looking at what happened under the crime as well, and would be looking to see what happened to justify the so they'd be looking as part of the modification process to go back and say what this person's involvement in that crime was in the first place.
So if I do something and or does this not happen, or do you think it doesn't happen, that a judge is likely to sentence someone to life or life without parole, but probably life, and there was no loss of life, would that not happen?
Nobody dies, it's not,
For felony murder, I
somebody
understand,
asked,
I understand that for felony murder.
somebody asked,
So it's just, so, but if I do something else. that's
then it
not
would be
under-
the attempted arson in the first degree or those other crimes that I listed. So that are, and none of those would be in the bill anyway. None of those are, well,
So they would not,
unless there were a lot of consecutive time, yes.
it would be consecutive. time.
Delegate
Okay, I'm
Crutchfield.
sure. Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, now that it's only felony murder, what are the number of people that we are possibly gonna be able to impact? with
We've been
this?
we've been in contact with the Department of Public Safety. The total number, I think, was somewhere, one moment, please.
Sure.
Doesn't say. That one. So that's the total number of all the people that they have.
Is it what? I think he had it.
Okay, so so again, we're looking at the universe that were sentenced between 18 and 28 years of age.
Mhm.
And so my belief it is a number that's somewhere around 50. 50.
Okay, whereas, Mr. Chair, before, when we included the other crimes, we were talking larger
About
number of
900.
thousand, okay, 900.
About 900.
Okay. All right.
I saw many others over here. Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to make sure, as it was previously drafted, it was more about taking a sentence and allowing a modification of the sentence up to 2 times. Now, the only thing that can be modified are cases of felony murder. That's okay.
They were sentenced under the age of 28.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Phillips, then Cardin, then Pasteur for the second bite. And I'll see you, okay, and Tolles after that, so.
All right, the way you said it, Mr. Chair, I want to make sure I'm clear. Is this only prospective, or would it apply to those that are currently incarcerated? Because I'm just trying to understand how.
It would be retrospective and prospective. It would
Okay,
apply to anyone who was sentenced in that way, as long as they had spent 20 years in jail.
okay. And I'm not a criminal lawyer, but battery and assault carries potentially 25 years, right?
Assault in the second degree carries 10 years. Assault in
In
the
the
first degree could carry, yeah, I think that does carry 25 years. But the
Wow.
thing here is that I'm just going through escape, kidnapping, mayhem. I don't think actually assault is listed here as one of the things that would be covered under felony murder. But if they assaulted you and then you died, that is a murder.
No,
they
I understand,
wouldn't
but
go,
but if you were, some of these things I probably wouldn't, well, okay.
Delegate, go ahead.
Uh,
Phillips.
And we won't have the stats on that. I'm just trying to figure out those things that, there are a number of things that we're going to be leaving out. And so that's where I guess we get
There
down to
are.
50 as opposed to 900.
There are, and the challenge here is that I mean, the goal, I mean, there are people who want to take everything out. The goal here is to, especially for issues related to felony murder, cases where somebody may not have been the person who actually killed the other person, but was one of the people who was involved in some way in the killing. And you know, the definition, it's allows anyone committing a felony to be charged with a murder if a commission of a felony results in a death. So that's the definition. So it is narrow, but the further argument again is, as was before, we're getting a commission that has to take a look at all of these things. And quite frankly, I hope that the governor will take a look at people who, well, 2 things. One, some of the people who are there for felony murder are people who were sentenced in the 80s and 90s and have been there a very long time during that period in time that's particularly challenging for this. And so the goal is to kind of go after those people and pull them out so that they have another look at it. As I said before, you know, we moved a version of this that was a lot broader, but in speaking with other members in the chamber, it's clear that there is some unreadiness to move forward with that. Delegate Cardin, then Tolles, then Pasteur, and then Kaufman.
Just wanted to try and put this. So you're talking about felony murder in that only people who were committing felony murder, as even though it's not actually listed in subtitle 2 of the criminal code, it's people who committed a crime and the person died because of the crime they committed. Is that what we're talking about here?
Right, it is
Okay.
2201A4.
So somebody who has been convicted of first-degree murder and is the primary person involved, not an accomplice or somebody who was in the commission, would also avail themselves of this, but because they would be with murder. So it's okay. it's only the people, even though the first degree murder person could also be charged with felony murder, they wouldn't qualify for it.
Usually don't get charged with that, or you get convicted of the murder in the first degree. And I know I'm gonna hear about all the exceptions where that's not accurate.
Okay,
but it's one of the-
I'm just trying to, okay, but
The argument is, and the rationale for it is, these are people who were not convicted of actually committing the premeditated crime of first degree murder.
Right.
These were the people who were in the ambit of that crime occurring.
so if I can do this so that, so other people can understand who may not be lawyers. So there are two people who are involved in trying to, they decide they're going to set fire to this person's house. One person may want to kill the person, but the other person has just said, I'm just here to light the fire because I'm his friend. And in fact, in the end, somebody unfortunately died. One person could be charged and convicted of first degree murder, but the other person couldn't be. He would be charged with felony murder. He could actually be charged, I guess, with second degree murder, but he would be charged with felony murder. That person could qualify if he was not interested in killing somebody, but he was interested in burning down a house, and he could qualify to get out after 20 or 30 years, depending, simply because he's a good person who really was not intending on murdering anybody. And he was just interested in committing first degree arson. I'm just like, let's just be honest. Let's be clear about it. That's what's happening.
No, I don't disagree with that. And again, what's in the bill is it gives the judge the opportunity to look at that. It gives the judge the opportunity to look at the situation, to look at the person's involvement, and to look at what the person did as opposed to what they didn't do. And that has to come into play. The victim's remarks will still have to come into play. Everything else that's already in this version of the bill will have to be there.
Right.
But that's what we're looking at. Before
And-
I go to Pat, you go ahead.
I'm just, and this subgroup was already included in the former group. It's just we've taken out everybody else, and this is all
Taken
that
out
remains.
everybody else and left them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Tolles, then Pasteur, then Kaufman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Some of my questions been answered, such as the prospective and then as it relates to how many individuals. So do they still get the 10 years as well? Or is it just, I'm sorry, is it 20 years and then come,
20 and then another look at 10. That still applies.
okay, I guess. And then is it possible for the agency to let us know? So you're saying it's 50, but I would be curious to know, based off what we had it before, which breakdown, based off some of the crimes that are being taken out, how many people under each, if that's even possible?
It was about 900 total before. It
Right.
would be about 50 now.
So I guess, but that 900, so that,
It would include a lot of the
870.
other crimes and subsequent crimes and crimes that have consecutive sentences added on for subsequent offenders and things like that.
would that be too much to figure out what those other 800 crimes would be, how many people per, what they're taking off, how many people that impact per category?
General sense of what those other crimes were, but it's literally most of the other crimes carrying more than 20 years in jail in the annotated code, ranging from child abuse to sexual offenses.
But we took off sexual offenses anyway, or did we not
No,
take that off last
They were
time?
in the bill. They're not in the bill. They wouldn't be under the bill under this amendment.
Under this amendment.
Delegate Pasteur, then Kaufman, then Taylor.
Okay, ignorance isn't bliss, it's just ignorance. So I plead that because I don't understand why other people who did not, it's not a case of felony murder, but they have been in prison for very long sentences for a number of reasons, just or not just, why they are not included if they were included before. And I'm not talking about sexual offenses or whatever, but we know that there are people who are in prison and have been there for a long time. So I'm confused as to why they would not be in
I'm sorry, I
this.
don't understand your question. What do you,
Okay. Anybody understand my question?
no,
That
what
knows the
was your
law that
question,
can help me?
please?
I'll,
Delegate Crutchfield, you want to try to take?
Yeah, I'll try, but I guess I have a question So a couple of questions. The sponsor of the bill, the Senate bill, has she been involved at all?
No.
Okay, okay, not a problem. And I think then my other question is really the intent, the original intent of the bill was, I believe, to address mass incarceration in this state. And I don't see that as really being something that we are now attempting to do. You know, I understand with most of those who are convicted of felony murder, they do not get an opportunity for parole in most cases. But however, I think what we're really trying to get at, we just are not going to be able to do that in the present posture of this bill. And so I'm really concerned about that. You know, and with that said, I guess what you're trying to get at is why the bill changed so drastically from, again, going from the 900 plus people that it did at one time actually have a benefit to now the smaller number. And I don't know if you're able to just give us a little bit more of a read on that. I mean, it sounded like they're just leadership or folks that are just not ready to take it on, but is there something else maybe, or is there?
I think that there is an interest in trying to move some part of the bill and move some universe in the bill. But based on what the conversations that I've had and that the speakers people have had, we don't believe that we can. We believe that there are a number of amendments that are likely to get onto the bill through the process. And as such, if they get on to the process, you can actually end up in some ways in a worse position than this.
Okay.
And so the question is, I guess the question also to this committee, if this is not enough, then we could just do the commission and leave it at that. But the goal was at least, I mean, there was testimony and there were conversations for people who were convicted of felony murder. And this has been an issue that this committee has addressed and has addressed quite a bit, where by opening it up, even albeit a small universe of people who were life with the possibility of parole and life without the possibility of parole, it allows those people to get another look and gets a judge to take a look at what happened both then and how they've progressed since then. And so it is not everything, but it's also not nothing. And the question becomes, at this point, at this hour,
What do we want to do?
what do you want to do?
Right.
And quite frankly, I think, and I've said since the beginning, I do believe that there needs to be a real look at what we do on the parole system. I think there's the parole pardons and the dim credits part of the bill is something that is very important that we do really need to do. But where we are right now is through the legislative process. I'm not sure that the bill looks a whole lot different from this at the end of the day, once we get through the votes on the floor, based on what I'm hearing and the concerns that I'm hearing from people on the floor of the House.
Well, tell me about the commission just a little bit more. What could it dig into for us?
So it would look at the parole system. It would look at parole systems in other states and compare our system to theirs. Would look at the laws that we already have on the books for gubernatorial pardons. Same thing. Look at how other pardon processes operate in other states across the country. It would look at dim credits and do the same thing with other states across the country. It's meant to compare and contrast those things. It would go for a considerable period of time. It would go for 3 years because the Parole Commission has not had a substantive look as to what's happened there for some time. And it also, I would hope, as part of that process, would begin a process of looking at the part that we don't talk about is the governor's ability to pardon, and whether that is actually another thing where he could take more of a leading role in figuring out how some of these people could see a change to their sentence sooner rather than later. Again, looking at the crimes for which they were committed. That's what the group would do. I add in the amendment, it's gonna add a couple more people appointed by the House and the Senate to provide some more people with the opportunity to be part of that group. But it includes the public defender, the state's attorneys, and sort of the usual people who would be part of this, part of that. The chair would be picked by the governor and the two presiding officers of the legislature.
Got it. All right. Well, that gives me some information to really think about it a little bit more. And I would propose another amendment when we get to that point.
Okay. Delegate Kaufman, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I too share my colleagues' disappointment that it doesn't do more, but good leaders know how to count votes, which it appears that folks have done, and I think doing something is better than doing nothing. But my question is, I noticed that you took out the part about OPD representing indigent defendants, and I understand that because I heard some concerns from OPD myself about what it would do to their workload and a quote unquote unfunded mandate, but
They asked to be taken out.
but well, I was sort of dancing around that, trying to be euphemistic, but my question is, my question is, I understand their concerns, but who then is going to represent indigent defendants if, one of these 50 people needs, Tom, Dick, or Harriet needs a lawyer?
I think the issue more is that they didn't want to be affirmatively the people who would have to provide assistance to the defendants. They wanted, they will still allow people to apply. They will still allow people who are indigent to apply for their services and to get their help.
Oh, so they still will represent people on a
They
case by
still
case basis?
can,
Yeah.
it's not that they must.
Okay.
And so it would have required, they pointed out it would have required more attorneys. And so we are just taking them out. And if people qualify for the public defender, which many of these people almost certainly will, they will be able to get the public defender. So it doesn't limit their ability to get them.
Oh, that's what I was concerned
Yeah.
about. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Taylor.
Thank you. So we've gone from 1,200 to around 850, now 50, and in all probability, probably half of those would qualify and actually be released. So to me, we are no longer talking about a second look, and we're no longer talking about the spirit or intent of the original bill. And I would propose, and maybe not that this may not be the right time, but want to make sure we get it on the floor, to at least have the opportunity to talk about it, is two bills. Like this now is no longer a second look act. Maybe we change the name and call it a commission bill, or a bill, and I'm actually very, very grateful for having the LWOPs put back in. But maybe this is a bill that just deals with life without parolees. So to me, it's no longer the second look. It's not the intent. And maybe this is what Delegate Crutchfield was going to get to eventually with an amendment, is making this potentially two bills and removing the name Second Look Act, because that is not what it is anymore.
If people want to remove the name Second Look Act, that's fine. It was added as part, I think, of one of the recent amendments, but what I think as far as a second bill at this point, we're at a point in this on the clock where we're out of time. So I think it would be unlikely that we would do something like that. Delegate Eric.
I move the previous question.
All right, we've had discussion on the chair's amendment. So I would ask you to support the amendment. I will say this, as I indicated to the sponsor of the legislation. I believe that what we did with the juvenile lifers bill in 2021 was the right thing. I think the challenge that we have right now is that this legislation There appears to be work that still needs to be done with members of the legislature to go forward here and to address the concerns that quite a few members of the legislature have with this. So I would ask for the committee to support the amendment. And with that, the question was, we moved the previous question. And I will ask those people in favor of the chairman's amendment to remove everyone except for felony murder to please raise your hands. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Is there anybody opposed? 1 opposed or 4? 4, 15, 2, 3, 4, 5 is opposed. The amendment is adopted and will be taken to the floor. That concludes the work for the House Judiciary Committee for this part of the afternoon. Further meetings of the Judiciary Committee are going to be held over in the State House to facilitate, not to make light of Delegate Kaufman, but the less we have to go across the street, it's easier for him to participate. So we're going to be staying on that side of the street the rest of the way. Thank you all very much.